Welcome into our overtime segment here at SportsSource.tv. Glad to have you with us. We have a lot of good Twitter questions that you have sent in. We have here to answer them Bob Hodge, Bobby Scott, Shazan Bradley, Mark Pankratz. We got football, basketball, we got it all covered. Here's your first question. What position will be the biggest weakness for Tennessee next year? What position is the biggest weakness? Can I start?
Okay, go ahead.
If Jalen Reeves-Maben goes, I got serious questions about linebacker. You've only played, you have a two linebacker scheme basically. It's 4-2-5 for most of the year. And it took you half a year to get Kirkland up to speed, and Kirkland looks like he's going to be good. I just don't know that you've got the depth there.
I will say if Jalen Reeves-Maben stays, I'm going to go with your defensive backs because you're losing two starters. Mm-hmm. You're losing the guy that started more games than any other player in Tennessee history. So I think your DBs, and then you can add another if he goes, if Cameron Sutton goes. Now you've lost 3 out of 4, and I do think, Shazan said it earlier in the show, you got some good guys back there, but still these guys were starters for a reason. So I'm going to worry about the DBs before I'm going to worry about the linebackers.
As much as Todd Kelly Jr. has made big plays, he hasn't been starting.
Yes.
So I want to see what happens there. But DBs is a good answer, especially if Sutton goes. You're losing 500 career tackles in McNeil and Randolph. That's a lot.
Y'all hit the two that I would say. Offensively, the offensive line is improving. Defensive line, you get Tuttle back, and it's going to be okay. Those two places are where you gotta find somebody to step in.
All right, we got the back end of the defense. Shazan, you agree with that as the weakness?
In today's world, in terms of how the game's changed, you have to have strong DBs and strong linebackers. Just like on offense, your quarterback and your receivers are, to me, most important. They're paying offensive tackles more money than they're paying running backs at this moment. But yes, it's definitely. A good DB is hard to find. A good DB is nothing but a receiver that can't catch the ball. But at the same time, it's kind of tight. And when you start talking about losing this Maben and losing some of these guys like that, it kind of makes me a little bit uncomfortable because at that point we hadn't turned the corner. If we're going to lose those guys, we're going back to square one, and hopefully Todd Kelly Jr. and those guys can come on up and hold it. But it's going to be tight, guys. If we lose those players, it's like whoa.
Well, yeah. If it's LSU lost 17, you're talking about 3, but Tennessee hasn't had the run of recruiting success over. It's not the pipeline yet that LSU has had. So if you lose some of those important guys, you could be in trouble. What's the biggest strength area? Running back? If Kamara comes back?
Boy, the biggest
D-line, because you've got such a rotation.
I'm going to go with the defensive line because I think, and I'm not so sure that I don't want to call your offensive line a strength now, but inadvertently you developed some depth because you had injuries. You've got guys that are farther along now than you expected them to be back when the season started. But I think the defensive line, because you lost some guys this year, and the defensive line kept playing well and got better as the season went along. So I'm going to say defensive line is your strength position.
Okay, guys, you have a strength position.
I think running back. You've got Hurd, Kamara. If he leaves, I like what I saw of Kelly. In the games that he's played, he might could step in for Kamara and be the jitterbug guy that makes you miss.
Well, myself personally, I think his running backs is definitely a strong point. But with Kamara, I would actually I'd almost take Kamara out and give the ball to Evan Berry. I think when Kamara tries to move, they're going too much east and west. As you make the move north or south, you have to be moving. As you make the move west and east, you got to be going north and south, and he's not doing that enough. Everybody's getting into moving. Well, these linebackers are running 4-5s, 4-3s, 4-2s, 4-4s. Those guys are closing while you're moving. You got to move in almost in 4 different directions at the same time, and you got to keep going that way. And I don't see that. That's not happening with Kamara, and I think Evan Berry can definitely do that.
All right. Mark Pankratz, just a basketball question for you. We teased it in the show. Somebody asked, is Rick Barnes putting too much blame on his players after losses? He made the comments yesterday. I guess they're talking about the fact that he said, my guys don't understand what goes into losing yet. If they did, they would have been playing better at this end of the court, that kind of stuff. Is he putting too much blame on his players?
No, because in the same press conference, he also talked about, yes, they shot some bad shots, but that's my fault, him saying that he was taking blame. He took blame 3 different times for not having guys understanding what a good shot is, or maybe not understanding what putting more focus on winning versus losing. Or he has that focus, and I think you see that in great coaches. Great coaches take blame when they make mistakes. Coach Barnes is a Hall of Fame coach. He's done it and won it at the highest of levels, and he's taking blame. Now he does. The difference is athletes get to this point, and many of them have not been told they've made mistakes in the past. Everything is okay because you've been able to score 30 points a game as a high school senior, or you've been able to score a lot of touchdowns. They let him get away with things, and now he has to, as he builds his program the way he wants to build it, he's got to hold these guys accountable, and part of it is growing pains and teaching them in year one where there should be no expectations to win at a high level. He's laying the foundation for building his program. Year 3 is what you're looking at. So he's taking blame, but I'm okay with him being hard on these kids.
Yeah, and I want to see a little bit more of this before we start saying, it's got he's too hard on him. Let's see what
I'm okay with what Mark said. Are you?
All they have to do is put me in the game. So put me in the game.
All right. Anybody concerned with recruiting at this point? You're ranked 18th in Rivals. You've been in the top 5 the last couple of years. I think you're top 10 in, or near the top 10 in Butch Jones' first year. You were around there when it was the class he kind of held together, cobbled together once Dooley left. It was the Josh Dobbs class, very important class. Are you concerned about Tennessee's recruiting rankings?
I'm really not. And the reason I'm really not is because Tennessee has shown, this coaching staff has shown, that they take 3-star guys and they turn out to be pretty good football players. People need to remember, your lowest rated offensive lineman last year was Chance Hall. That was the lowest rated guy that you had coming in. Who was the freshman that played the most on your offensive line this year? It was Chance Hall. I think, and we've talked about it before, the recruiting numbers can be a guide, but it's not fortune telling. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. Plus, Tennessee in the years past has signed 28 guys, 32 guys. This year you're not.
Rivals grades your top 20 players, all right? Tennessee has 17 commitments right now. So they got 3 people they can add in there that can change that number. But also when you look at the average star ranking, Tennessee's 8th in the nation. So it's a smaller class. They're able to pick and choose a little bit more. Now, you've lost some guys that you did want. You're going to hang on to a guy like a defensive lineman like Kongbo, who Alabama's going to make a real push for. Mm-hmm. But I do think at this point, even if you fall back to 15 this year after a couple of 5s, barring a bunch of guys leaving, if all those guys leave, I'm going to have a different take. But I think you can survive that this year because of what you've done in the past and what you have returning. This is still going to be, you don't have a ton of seniors next year. It's a ton of juniors. So I think you can be all right on recruiting.
I think we should recruit. I think Tennessee's letting a lot of our own players from the state of Tennessee. I think we're letting a lot of guys go. Guys that can really play the game. I'm noticing that even in the last year and a half.
This guy's doing a better job than previous staffs.
Yeah, you're right. But there's too many of them going.
You're a big believer. You and Bobby both, I think. And if I'm wrong about you believing this, you tell me. I think you guys are believers in a Tennessee kid's going to play harder for Tennessee than some kid from California.
He's willing to die.
Do I agree? Do you guys?
I agree with that 100%.
Okay. A kid from Tennessee is willing to die. If you got a man and you fighting, he's willing to die. Just give him everything he wants and leave.
See, I don't. My view is, would Peyton Manning have played any harder for Ole Miss than he did for Tennessee, or for
LSU?
Or LSU? I see where you're getting at. That's a 50-50. It's split on everybody.
That's a different. He's in a different league.
Yes.
T. Martin.
T. Martin's from Florida.
No, he's from Alabama.
Alabama.
That's right.
Mobile, practically Florida. Yeah.
He came in here to play hard.
What do you think?
But I think today's athlete's a little bit different from the standpoint of players hop around so much, and they're not. College is a little bit different because there are true blood Tennessee fans, and I do think if I grew up a Tennessee fan and I get the opportunity to play there, there's something about being able to put on that orange and white that I don't take it for granted.
Dane Bradshaw.
But then there's other kids that because of the way recruiting is, they're going at the biggest flashy, shiny object, and it's just different. But I think, you see it in basketball. Why I'm not worried about Barnes recruiting is because these kids want to play in the SEC. Tennessee's giving them an opportunity to play in the SEC, and so they're going to come here like Chris Lofton type, where they're going to come here because they have this opportunity, and they're not going to take it for granted, and they're going to go out there and try to improve and listen to the coaches and not get in trouble because they're out there doing what they're supposed to be doing.
All right. Let me get maybe two if we get into it. We've touched on this sort of. How many or who would Tennessee have to lose of Sutton, Reeves, Maven, Kamara to make you change the win-loss prediction for next year? I don't know. We were talking the other day about 10-2 is probably where I'm going to be next year. What would cause you to drop it a grade? Who would have to leave, or would you have to lose most?
I would
of
be
those?
really worried if Maben leaves.
Yeah.
I think you can replace Kamara, and I think you're going to replace Sutton. I think.
To me, that's the key.
Yeah, I mean Maben is the one that worries me the most.
He's the
Yeah.
one that makes the tackles.
Yeah.
I mean, he leads every week.
Yeah, Reeves,
You know,
Maven.
I mean,
There's your answer.
a year ago we thought A.J. Johnson was irreplaceable. Then he gets suspended, and Reeves Maben, to me, is a better player than A.J. Johnson.
So
was.
you may have somebody else back
So
there.
you may have
Yeah.
somebody else back there, but boy, going into next year, which should be your year to really compete for things, that's the one who would concern me the most.
4 or 5 players would show up that we never even thought about. Like, whoa, where did he come from? Because he's recruited that well.
Well, and you had some of that this year. I mean,
Yeah.
especially on that D line, you kept having guys get hurt. So it's okay. Now we're going to have to get McKenzie in here, and we're going to have to get Tuttle in here, and all of a sudden they start playing.
Well, and then the
pretty
kid, I
well
can never
until he gets
remember
hurt.
his name, number 5.
Kyle Phillips?
Yeah, Phillips, who was the lowest rated of those defensive linemen and may have had the best impact before he gets nicked up.
Yeah, so Shazan's right. You've got some guys that are going to pop out of nowhere that show up. But where we are now, what we know now, I think we all agree Reeves Maben is the one that would impact our prediction on the team next year. And again, it goes back to you just didn't see a ton of linebackers out there this year that you would say he's got it and he's got it. All right, last one. What kind of hit would it be? We talked about this last week maybe. What kind of hit would it be if, let's say, Kamara comes back this year? He and Hurd can both go next year. How big of a hit
Wow.
would that be on Tennessee? Now, in terms of running backs, you've got Mighty Joe Young, you've got John Kelly over
But
there.
you're
who
also
looks
going to have a
solid.
new starter at quarterback who then would not have either one of those guys.
You hope
Good
you've
point.
got somebody in the pipeline coming. And,
Well, and the thing is, you may be able to sign one of those guys if it's looking like they're going to go. Maybe they're going to have somebody splash in this class that they can surprise us with at signing day.
But if next season you have the success that everybody's expecting this team to have, and now you've got to replace your entire backfield with guys who haven't played that much, see, I would feel better. Boy, we lost Dobbs, but we've got Hurd.
Yes, I will say this though. That throws a caveat into it. But if there's an area where a high schooler can step right in,
That's true.
it's receiver and running back. Those are the areas where it's just the talent. Give them the ball,
Yep.
let them go. So that's good. So Mark Pankratz, thanks for your time today. Shazan, Bradley, Bobby Scott, Bob Hodge. Appreciate all these guys. Appreciate you every week tuning us in. Forward this link to your friends. Get the out-of-town Vol fans checking out SportsSource.tv so they can keep up with the Vols wherever they are around the globe. See you next Sunday at 11 a.m. on WATE 6.